No long intro. Weekly trading review and lessons. Now, for this week's video, we'll talk about Carl Jung and the individual that first referred me to his writing. Now, Carl Jung said, "Why are you looking around for help? Do you believe that help will come from outside? What is to come is created in you and from you. Hence, look into yourself. Do not compare. Do not measure. No other way is like yours. All other ways deceive and tempt you. You must fulfill the way that is in you." Now, originally, I had this quote picked out because I anticipated passing my FTMO challenge this week. As a matter of fact, I was about $100 off from passing it. I had the profits floating and it ended up retracing a bit, so I ended up closing the position with less profits than I'd like. But I thought this quote is still quite fitting for today's video. And originally, I was introduced to Carl Jung's writings by one of my earlier mentors, Jordan B. Peterson. And in his book, 12 Rules for Life, rule number 4, which is one of those rules that I remember by memory, which I don't remember a lot of things by memory, by the way, but there are specific things like quotes and Bible verses that mean so much to me that I can't help but ingrain them into my brain, even though it's not a conscious thing. Now, he says that compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today. Now, this is very crucial as a trader because oftentimes I fall victim to this too. I look at someone else's trading, I think, man, I wish I could do that. How'd they get in here and get out there? That's awesome. I wish I could do that. But I constantly have to remind myself, no, there's no point of doing that because no other way is like mine's, which is what Carl Jung said up here. He says, no other way is like yours. Oftentimes we try to draw a line of comparison between you and someone else, but he explicitly said here, do not compare, do not measure. And that's very true because the truth is we all have unique lives and unique situations where someone else that comes from a family or B family, way different upbringings, and if they have the same goals, chances are they won't reach them by doing the same thing. And Carl Jung mentioned in the beginning, why are you looking around for help? And that's one of the things earlier on in my development. I look for shortcuts, of course, paying for signals, $50 signal chats, $100 signal chats. Some apparently nowadays they're even more expensive. But looking around for help was one of those things that held me back for so long because I spent so much of my time wasted waiting for someone to send me signals while I did something else instead of actually looking at the charts myself and actually adding that towards my 10,000 hour rule. Remember, one of the first videos I posted on the channel, actually the first video was the principles of mastery. And the forefront argument of that video was the term that was coined by Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hour rule. And Carl Jung mentioned that, do you believe that help will come from outside? We all know that it won't, but oftentimes, I guess, some of us, we can't help it. And I couldn't help it either. Hey, $50, $100, and I'll get signals that are profitable. I don't have to look at the charts myself and, drive myself crazy trying to see what these candlesticks even mean. Yeah, I'll give it a try, but turns out it hindered my development more than it advanced it. And so I thought these two quotes would be quite fitting for today's video. Although I really want to talk about the market analysis on Sunday and what I outlined in that video. Now, I was looking for higher prices in the dollar, not the dollar, but the euro dollar to be more specific. And it happened. Exactly what I wanted to see happen, and I talked about it in the video. But I set my limit, buy limit, and price never triggered me in, and price just left without me. So oftentimes, this happens to me a lot, which is one of the key takeaways from this week's trading, which is things simply won't go your way, even if you have the right bias, can have the right framework, and sometimes you don't get an entry. And ICT talked about in his bridge builder lecture, I think a few weeks ago, when it comes to framing your setups and how price doesn't necessarily have to reach the drawn liquidity or your original target, but on its way there, you can find something, a scalp, a intraday trade, a day trade, depending on what time frame you're looking at. And for my case, I didn't find nothing. And the one thing I thought I did find simply didn't trigger me in. Now, do I get upset about that? No. At this point in my life, I'm very comfortable with being indifferent, which is one of my core story principles, which is being indifferent, especially when things don't go your way. I don't control whether or not price filled in my limit, but what I do control is whether I go around chasing price because it didn't fill me in, because I'm upset. Now, let's actually take a look at one of the trades. I actually already talked about this specific trade uh, in my last video. So I do encourage you guys to watch that video first before you watch this one, because it'll make a lot more sense. So, quick recap. Sold inside this fair value gap here. Stop loss at the top of the wick here. Assuming price will at most trade into the mean threshold of that bearish order block and then head lower. But as you can see here, it didn't do that. Classic. Stopped me out by like I think 3 pips and then fell off. This was the trade that was supposed to actually pass the challenge after the other one failed to do so and had to close it with less profit than what I really wanted. But this one, I mean, I didn't even have a chance. This thing just came in profits quickly down here, but it just took me out. And I felt like this trade was actually personal. I really felt like someone knew my stop loss was up there and they decided to do this. Although that's not true, but at the time it felt like it. And I just decided not to trade for the rest of the day. And since then, I haven't found a position at all. And I talked about this, how I had the bias wrong. I was looking for the protractionary phase to actually still take place. I failed to realize that this was a London delayed protraction that was happening here. And if you guys remember, it's only been a couple weeks since I've been introduced to the concept itself, because it's hindered my development for quite some time now. And now I'm understanding that, price, there's a delay sometimes when it comes to the protraction that's supposed to happen during London, and I failed to recognize it in here, and for that it caused me some money. It caused me, it cost me about $700 or $800. So this trade hit my stop loss. I bought in here assuming price would go and take out this high and ultimately the buy side in here before heading lower. But I failed to realize, this is the protraction right here. This is essentially a retracement into something up here so price can eventually trade lower. I didn't see it at the time, and for that, there's no one else to blame but myself. I ought to be more careful and actually be more observant. But this is a pattern now. I'm really training myself to actually be able to see a little bit more, even though it's been a few weeks. But yeah, I'm working really hard on that. So these two trades themselves, the second one, I violated one of my rules, which was to never sell below New York Open. And I think New York Open was, I believe, somewhere up here. I didn't delineate the line, but it was somewhere up here. So I should only be selling up here. But I decided, you know what? this looks like a valid trade. I'll sell in here. What's the worst that can happen? And the worst did happen. Although I'm not even upset at the actual trade and the rule that I had to break to follow it, but that's actually one of the lessons we'll talk about very quickly, which is by Nassim Taleb. He says, compromising is condoning. Now, this is very true when it comes to, especially with the rule that I broke. I knew I shouldn't be selling below New York opening, but yet I did because I only looked at the bright side. Oh, if this trade goes my way, I'll pass my challenge and it'll all be good. But turns out it didn't. Had I simply followed that one simple rule, I would have not been down 1% from that one trade. Am I upset about it? No. It's really one of those things. A trade takes you out by 3 pips. You really can't be upset at that. Things like that do happen, and you have to be okay with it. So let's take a look here. So that's the first trade that stopped me out. Let's take a look. And these are all the trades from this past week. These two were from Wednesday, and these two were from Tuesday. So I ultimately only had one winner. And of course, the winner kind of wipes out, the loser. And for the week, up about 1%. I still need about 3% more now to get done with the challenge. And I was granted an extension since I was over the 5% rule. Apparently, they have now where if you're up more than 5%, you get a 2-week extension if you didn't reach the profit target. And this was the first trade. This was Tuesday's trading. Really nice trade. I thought that one would actually get me to the profit target. It was very close, very, very close, like $100 away. I could actually even smell it, but I guess we'll have to try again next week. But overall, a very boring week. Only traded twice, Tuesday and Wednesday. All the other days were pretty much very lackadaisical. Nothing interesting happened, or at least my model didn't show up at all. So that just shows you guys just patience pays. And what I've seen from price action this Friday has been terrible, and I have a feeling that a lot of guys got knocked down a lot today. And I woke up and I looked at price. I don't even know what I was looking at. So I just turned off the charts. I checked back again. Still don't know what I was looking at. And I've seen fair value gaps all over the place, order blocks all over the place. They're getting traded to like over and over again. So I hope none of you guys got hurt from all this mess that was happening today. And those days are days that sometimes you feel like you're glad you're not trading. And sometimes you'll be able to spot those specific days. I knew today wasn't going to be a particularly good day. Like last week, I was able to anticipate a big range day. I can actually anticipate those Fridays. And eventually later down the line, I'll start to open up a bit more on how I'm able to do so. But for now, I'll withhold some of this information. It's privileged information for now, but eventually I'll share it with you all. So with all that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And I hope you guys remember, for me, Saturdays are always miserable because it seems like the markets are so far away from opening. And Sundays are great because the markets open at 5 and I get to watch college football and NFL football on Sunday and all that kind of good stuff. So wish me luck and hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And actually take some time, look over some of the videos I've posted, the principles of mastery. Because let's say if you're one of those guys that got, battered around this week with this market condition, it may be hard, to look on the bright side and be positive. Oftentimes you want to compare yourself to someone who's far better than you, who's have way more experience, but try to refrain from doing that, but instead look on the positive side. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday and not who someone else is today, like Jordan mentioned. Because when you do so, you'll be a lot more happy, or you'll be content with yourself and understanding your strengths and weaknesses. I've missed a couple trades. That trade where I violated my rule, I compromised, anticipating, okay, this would play out. Well, it didn't, and I paid for it. Now I'm a better trader because of it. It may be hard to see in the moment, but in the long run, when those 10,000 hours add up, you'll be far, way, I mean, way further ahead, and you'll be far better off as a trader than in the past. So, with all that being said, have a wonderful weekend, guys, and be safe and good trading for next week. And I will post a market analysis video on Sunday, hopefully, assuming today's close is something interesting and I even have something to look forward to for next week. So anticipate the Sunday video at 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. With all that being said, guys, have a wonderful weekend.